So we got to do something about this music streaming stuff because it's gotten out of hand. Um, this is from Eric Albert on X. He said Taylor Swift achieves one of the most record-shattering weeks in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 song charts. She has the entire top 14 positions on the chart this week. So we've seen something like this before, like back in like 60 years ago with Beatlemania. The Beatles had like the top 5 positions on the chart because the Beatles was the hottest thing in town, right? It was like the Beatles and Motown, but the Beatles was just like killing everybody. And then over the years of streaming, if Taylor Swift or Beyonce dropped a new album, all their songs would chart on the charts. Usually would be in the top 20 and the top 30, but you would see all the songs chart. This is something totally different. You're basically telling me that every iPhone, every Android, every Chromebook, every laptop, every smart TV, every radio in the country are playing Taylor Swift music. Everybody. You're telling me right now that Taylor Swift in 2024 is the equivalent of Michael Jackson in 1984, where you could not go anywhere without hearing Billie Jean or Beat It or Want to Be Starting Something or Human Nature. Like you just couldn't go anywhere without hearing a Michael Jackson song. And this is absolutely false. Taylor Swift, listen, is she the biggest pop star in the world right now? Absolutely. Is the Eras Tour one of the biggest concerts of the past probably 10 years? Yeah. Partly because those high priced tickets. But she's very successful, became a billionaire. She's starting the second leg of her tour. Her fans love her. But she's not really a big crossover artist, right? Like it'd be totally different if Beyonce, I'll say Rihanna. Let's say Rihanna released this album, the Tortured Poets album, right? And let's say she dropped it. Given Rihanna's style, then Rihanna would be played on pop stations and R&B stations and reggae stations, because Rihanna combines a lot of different sounds, a lot of different music, and she touches a lot of different fan bases. Taylor Swift's main fan base is suburban girls and suburban women, probably rural too, because of her country background. But for the most part, it's suburban. It's suburban women and suburban girls. She's not hitting the R&B charts. Even with the Post Malone track, I don't see too many hip hop and R&B stations playing that song. Even if you take someone like Adele, who's a superior singer, but if you take someone like Adele and she puts something out, let's say she put out her own Tortured Poets album, she probably get played on some hip hop and R&B stations because in the past, not every Adele song got played, but if there's a track that hip hop and R&B stations like, they'll play it. Taylor Swift is not that person, man. So how did we get here? So back in the day, Billboard magazine based their charts on sales and airplay. But then back in the 50s, we had this little thing called Payola, where mobsters and record companies would pay radio stations to play an artist and play their songs. The government stepped in and said, hey, man, you can't do that. That's like a monopoly. You can't do that. And they got rid of Payola, allegedly. I think they kind of worked around Payola with gifts. I'm not saying it still happens, but So many moons later, streaming comes into play. You have YouTube, Spotify, all these things. And Billboard said these things are really more important. In a lot of ways, these things are downloads and all these things are actually probably more important than sales right now. So they incorporated radio airplay, sales, and streaming. And what happened was the singles chart got turned on its head because now you have a lot of rappers, country artists, Latin artists, dance artists who otherwise wouldn't get played on pop radio showing up on the chart. And what you basically learned was not every song that people like is being played on the radio. People are seeking these songs out on their own, and they actually have stronger fan bases, so streaming initially was actually good on the charts. Flash forward, it seems like the record companies and the fan bases, Swifties, Bayhive, whoever it is, figured out a loophole. And I'm not saying that they're in cahoots, but I think they're continuously streaming these albums to chart all these songs. Now again, if Taylor Swift put out this album and they said all 14 songs charted in the top 40, I would say like, okay, that's still crazy, but okay, fine. I buy that. But you're saying like no one else around is listening to nothing but Taylor Swift. Like if you go down the street, if people driving down the street, you hear nothing but Taylor Swift songs. When you walk into the store, you hear nothing but Taylor Swift songs. When people walk around, you hear people singing Taylor Swift songs. That's not true. That's not true. Like when Michael Jackson hit, you can get. I remember when Michael Jackson put out State of Shock with Mick Jagger, and that was on the 2300 Jackson Street album, and that was in between Bad, and that was in between Thriller and Bad, and at that point, radio was so hungry for a Michael Jackson song. When they heard that Michael was doing this song with Mick, which originally was Michael and Freddie Mercury from Queen, but they took him off unfairly, I think. Just because I think behind the scenes they knew about Freddie's HIV status, but I can't confirm that. But when they heard that Michael had this song with Mick, every radio station said, we're going to play the new Michael Jackson song. And every radio station, they played it at noon. R&B stations played State of Shock. Pop stations play State of Shock. Rock stations play State of Shock. Maybe some country stations, because Michael Mania was so huge. And as big as Taylor Swift is in 2024, she is not Michael Jackson huge, right? But this isn't really about Taylor. It's about the manipulation of streaming. So what can be done? Here's what I think. See, this is what I think might be going on. I feel like her Swifties, and it's not just her fan base, it's all the fan bases. I don't know exactly how streaming works, but here's what I think might happen. If you're a fan, you just leave your laptop open and stream that album, and you go to school or you go to work, and the album plays all day, and every song clicks. And it just repeats itself, and every song clicks. And I think, or if the fan bases aren't doing this, then definitely the record companies are doing something where they have a way of just having that album just continuously just run all the time. Because back when I was buying more albums, here's the thing: like you would buy a CD, a cassette, vinyl, whatever it was, MP3, and you would listen to the album, and you would listen to the tracks that was already out of singles. You listen to the new tracks that you kind of like. There's a kind of tracks you kind of like, and there's some tracks you didn't like. So for the most part, you're listening to about the same 5 to 7 tracks. But 9 times out of 10, you're not listening to the whole album, because I don't care who you are. Most albums are not great. Most albums are really, really good, but most albums are not Thriller or Purple Rain or even To Get Rich or Die Trying, where it's like you just can't get enough of this album. This album's so good, there are no skips. And I hate when kids say no skips today, because most of the albums that they say today are no skips do have skips. I might be an old head, but most of these albums are not great. They are not the Black Album. They are not College Dropout. They are not Outkast, Stankonia or something like that, or Lauryn Hill. These albums are not like that at all. They're good albums, but not great albums. So if that's the case, and I'm thinking that they're just streaming these albums all day and all night, what I would do is I would put a clause, and I would say, oh yeah, the IP address. So if there's an IP address, it can only count for either one a day or twice a day. So if I'm streaming the album, it doesn't matter how many times I listen to it, if this one IP address here is listening to this album, it counts for maybe once or twice, maybe every 12 hours it counts. Or, okay, fine, let's say maybe 4 times a day it counts. But it just can't be continuous. No, you know what? Make it twice a day. It can't be continuous, because then you're rigging the charts. So what can we do with streaming? And, okay, so to be fair, on the other side of things, streaming does have another problem, which is, they don't pay anybody. Like someone like Taylor Swift can have all these streams and she gets pennies. And that's not fair either. So for the record companies and the fan bases, we got to do something so these songs are not overloading the charts, because they're basically saying, like, we are not listening to nothing else but Taylor Swift, which is a lie. But on the artist side, on the Taylor Swift side, we got to figure out a way to calculate some formula so they can get paid. Because if they are getting all these views and these listens, they should be paid for it. But tell me, are you listening to this new Taylor Swift album? Are you? If you're a non-Swiftie, listen, we all like Taylor Swift is fine. She's okay. But enough is enough.